How's it going, everyone? Today I'm going to do something a little different here on my channel. I'm going to be doing a mural in this room of our house because we have a newborn baby boy on the way. So we will be making this mural and setting it up for the nursery. As you can see, some of this is already sketched in, ready to go. So now we just got to do the paint and get it all up so we can get the furniture in, have it all set up.
I started with the blue background for the sky. Now I used Valspar Moment of Grace blue. It was a nice blue that's a little light, not too dark, but had a really nice sky blue feel to it.
There we go, we got the baby blue paint up. We rolled it out, had to do some finesse work around some of the branches on the tree in the corner, around these mountains, and then of course around the pirate ship as well. Well, maybe not a pirate ship, but a schooner of sorts. So, got all that done. Now it's gotta dry.
Then move on to the terrain. For the terrain, we're gonna use a Valspar Spring Leaves, which is a darker green with a little bit of black added.
Now we wanna get the base layer of the landscape and then do the trees. Now we did cut out some stencils on our Cricut to actually make the trees a little bit more uniform, as well as make it easier to put them up on the wall.
Putting up some of that gray for the mountains was really easy after that base coat of brown, and then I went back over that after it dried to add some shading as well as some highlights. If you're using a stencil on anything you might be working on, try to stipple in around the edges and don't brush too hard, or else the paint might go under the stencil.
So after applying this darker green paint and layering in these trees, we went to this lighter green. So going down the next layer, kind of doing the same thing, getting the green along the middle, and then getting the stencils to get those tree shapes in there, and then going all the way down the line. Now, within all this, did have to put these mountains up kind of before and during. And then we got to this third layer, the minty green, light green, kind of right in the sunshine. And then you can see all the way across, we had to put up some bigger stencils. So going from the back layer to the front layer, we made sure those trees got a little smaller, and it helps with perspective, because perspective is great. As you can see, moving right along right here, it's been a few days, kind of doing a little bit every day. You know, we didn't want to kind of try to do this all at once because it would be a lot of work, pretty draining. So now we're going to move on to this beach area, and then probably the tree, maybe the boat. We'll see how it goes.
As you can see, it was really easy to paint on the white walls because the outline was still there. Now, one thing to note, on the blue walls, you could still see that pencil line through, so it was easy to kind of find the shapes there. Now we went back and detailed the tree, did some line work, outlined it, added some of the texture for the bark as well as the grain of the wood.
Moving right along, we have the tree details in. We got to do a little bit more down by the trunk to add some stuff by the roots, as well as the hobbit holes, doing some of the signage, a little bit more on this side. And of course, these 4 branches are also going to get shelves, so we can put stuff up there, books, and various like kid accoutrements. Kind of coming along, still a lot of work to do. About 4 or 5 days in, wish we had time to just kind of do it all at once, but we got to kind of plan, do it a little bit at a time. Continuing on, probably gonna build those shelves and finish more on the pirate ship.
For both the tree and the pirate ship, the dark base brown is Middle Earth brown. And then all the highlighting was the same brown, just lightened up with some white. To do the portholes on the side of the ship, or the cannon holes, I used a stencil to get that perfect round shape in a very time-efficient way. Next, I did the detail work on the hull of the ship, adding some of the board lines across the bottom. Next, to do the sand of the bottom of the ocean as well as the beach, I used a teak brown. A very light brown, but it had a sandy finish. For the water, I used a Liquitex teal paint, which is a high-end acrylic paint.
Looking at what we still have to do here on this mural, we got the water in, which is really nice. The ship kind of done with some small details left to do. And then of course the sand at the bottom of the ocean. We have some corals and stones and fish to put in. And then of course the beach scene.
So we're going to use the sea sponge to actually stipple in on all of that beach and sandy areas, and it'll create a really nice texture, I think, for the tree, and do the like fantasy doors down at the bottom. But other than that, continuing on. When I did the stipple of the beach and the sand at the bottom of the ocean, I just added a little white to the teak wood, similar to the terrain of the green as well as the brown for the tree and the ship, adding a little black or white to either darken or lighten things up so it would stay in the same color family. Next, I started on doing some of the rocks, so creating a gray color, just adding black and white together, nice shade of gray to add rocks to both the bottom of the ocean and the beach. And of course, adding some shade and highlights. Next was to do some of that frothy white water on the ocean. Now, as Bob Ross would say, this was the courage test, because putting that on and making it look like waves actually washing up on the shore was really tough, but I think it turned out really well. Next, using a small filbert brush, I went back and did some of the line work on the waves as well as the ocean, and it created this nice transparent effect on the bottom of the boat with some of that stippling. The water turned out really nice. All of this stippling went a long way. Now, after doing the beach and the rocks, it was time to move on to the underwater details. So adding some seaweed as well as some sea creatures all to this mural to give some shape and some depth. Another thing to add was some bubbles. Gotta have some bubbles under the sea, and this way we can learn shapes and counting as well. Next was to finish the details at the base of the tree. So putting some base colors down for the sign, and then moving on to the fairy doors, the hobbit doors, the gnome doors, kind of just these amalgamation of any kind of fantasy door that might be on a tree. Then using some of that dark brown to stipple in the dirt around the door, then adding green for that classic bag end colored door. The next thing to add for this quaint little home setup was the paver stepping stones. This way there was a nice path leading to the front door. Much like the details added underwater, this was an amazingly fun experience, adding all these little intricate details, making the scene really come to life. Now, next thing, we added a ranch fence that made it even more quaint. As I added the ranch fence, I made sure one of the cross beams was broken, because of course, nothing is perfect. From there, I added some of the detail on the sign to add some of the boards, and then finished adding some highlights to that ranch fence. To finish everything off, my little hack here, instead of using black paint to try to do all the outline, I just went back with a Sharpie, went over top, and that added a lot of detail, a lot of depth to all the stonework. After doing all the base detail on the tree, the next thing to do was to put up the shelves. Now the shelves blend into this tree really well, so as the stuff sits on them, it really truly looks like they're sitting on the branches. The last thing to do to finish this tree off was to add some green, some leaves. Now using a 2-inch chip brush, I basically just smattered some loose leaves on, no different than just patting it on. I made sure to keep some distance from the trunk and went back with a small brush to fill in all the gaps. Now then I stippled in a darker green over top to give it depth and contrast. To finish off the sky, I used the stipple to put in some clouds. Now I also used it somewhat like a brush to lift and swirl those clouds, making them nice and happy and fluffy like marshmallows. To finish off this mural, I added an emblem to the ship because every good ship needs a logo of sorts, and I used the Polish eagle for my heritage because you always want to remember where you came from. Well, after a couple weeks, we finally got this whole mural done, all 3 walls, put the shelves in on the tree, got all the details going. We still need to add some stuff to the sign here because we know baby's name isn't quite revealed yet. But other than that, Polish flag, some heritage, and yeah, it was just a lot of work getting this done, getting everything kind of compiled in here to stimulate both imagination and intrigue, but not have too much stimulation all at the same time. So I hope you guys enjoyed checking this out as we did this mural. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on another adventure.